bring in Aaron Sykes and Jeff Yastine. Aaron, of course, is a marketing expert. Jeff is a senior analyst at Banyan Publishing. Guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, Jeff, to you first on the future of the CEO, Dennis Muilenburg. He has been accused, and a lot of critics say yesterday, he danced around, he tapped around the questions, and he really just didn't come out and frankly, he wasn't more emotional in his apology to the families, and many of them sitting right there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's as much optics as it is anything else. And with Boeing, you know, they have litigation to think about. And at this point, I think this is probably the best that we're probably going to see out of Boeing's executive core regarding like an apology and admittance to own this. Could they go further? Yes, but I don't think we're going to see anything more than what he's been saying here in front of the Senate and then today the House.
Well, maybe Aaron is trying to protect himself and his job, although he's already lost the chairman title. But Aaron, from a branding perspective, and that's why you're here this morning, what did you make of his performance and its effect on the name Boeing, the company Boeing?
I think Boeing has really dug itself into a hole here in terms of consumer perception. They really have not made a sincere apology, as Jeff was mentioning. I don't think that we're going to get much more out of him. But what we're realizing is how the back end really works and how they're allowed to self-regulate. And the FAA was not really going through with its checks and balances system. And because of this, the consumer is going to be becoming increasingly skeptical of all airlines.
Yeah, well, and, you know, Senator Blumenthal called it a flying coffin, which was pretty harsh. And you know, that's the next question here, Jeff, is that the company has so much negative publicity. The future of Dennis Muilenburg at this point is probably, and they asked him, are you going to still have a job? He said, I'm not a part of those discussions. And that's how he ended it. What can Boeing do, the company, to restore investor confidence and also consumer confidence, to Aaron's point?
Well, I think, and you mentioned that the stock was up yesterday, and I think that just is reflective of so much of the bad news is out, and we're not far now from the point where they'll begin to bring these aircraft back into the airline fleets. And I just don't think there's much else out there that, in terms of headline risk, that can be said that hasn't already been put out there to begin with. So at this point, I think we're seeing Boeing investors and Wall Street in general looking towards those better headlines. So, in terms of Boeing getting this behind them, the best thing they can do is get this plane back into the air with all the appropriate checks and balances, which is something that they've been working on since the grounding in March.
Well, it's funny because I talked to an aviation expert yesterday afternoon on Fox Business who said that they can't go back and they can't they can't discontinue the MAX. It's the latest iteration of the 737, and it's here to stay, so they've kind of got to fix it. But Aaron, finally to you, Senator Blumenthal brought all those victims' families there, and they were holding up these huge posters in the room of their loved ones that they had lost. And we heard earlier in our show an emotional statement from a gentleman who said basically that he heard nothing that made him had any confidence. He didn't feel like he was being apologized to for the loss of his sister. Is there anything we can take away from yesterday? And do you think that Blumenthal went too far in bringing the families into the room?
I think that the families should have absolutely been in the room, but they should have been treated a bit differently. It would have been nice if he had turned around and spoken them eye to eye rather than just speaking to the committee. It's obviously a very sensitive issue, and it was more of a corporate dog and pony show.
Interesting. Well, the emotional effect was certainly, it happened on our televisions live for everyone to see. We'll see how today goes. He's going to be back on the Hill. Aaron Sykes, Jeff Yastine, guys, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.